Okay, fine. We need to have a serious talk, and I'll just say it. Endurance missions, and especially level caps, do not indicate the real power of the frame. By no means the above-mentioned Warframes are bad ones. Actually, quite the opposite. They're generally very good, and may even have some important niche in the game. But creators' insane crush on the level cap and whatnot raises a broader topic on why most Warframe top lists are primarily flawed. Bear with me for a moment. I'll make it settled for good. The point being is that there is no best Warframe in the common sense of this word for two main reasons. First and foremost, the mod system makes it so that each and every frame with the proper build would be able to get the job done just fine. Secondly, unlike MOBAs or action RPGs, where every character is designed to operate in the one given scenario, Warframe is full of different mission types, and according to my carefully crafted criteria, the best Warframe is the one who excels while being irreplaceable at the most relevant types of content. Few examples to make sense of it. Let's look at Gauss, easily an S-tier Warframe, but in what particular activity he's the best? I enter very troubled waters with this, yet I'll insist on it. There is no such. Come up with any, and I'll give you a counter. However, there is another angle to it. Do you know who is the best, debatably, Warframe for Railjack? Garuda, because she has an effectively infinite mana to spam spaceship's abilities.
Oh, so here it is, one of a decent Warframe overall and surprisingly a Railjack monster at the same time. Bingo, isn't it?
Close, but not quite. With all due respect to Railjack gamers, this is yet another content island, which is why, aside from the value itself the Warframe provides, the places where it could be applied are just as important. Nova, who opens today's list, perfectly meets all criteria requirements. Her kit dominates the star chart, extremely versatile and powerful Warframe. But we all know exactly what one particular thing made her into this top: the glorious Speedva strategy. With Hold On cast, her fourth ability emits a radial wave of antimatter which speeds up all affected enemies. This absolutely unique ability boosts teams' KPM like nothing else. In the modern Warframe, you could hardly imagine the leveling or farming group setup without Nova. And to all nayers, let me repeat myself. Leveling and farming, those are two main pillars of the game. As you all might know, the Speedva tech was once a bug, achievable only with low strength build. And big thanks to DE, they made the slow and speed effects swappable. But honestly, when things like minus cap damage just casually happen to pop here and there, I don't know people who played around crowd control, aka the slow option of the molecular prime. And I'm not saying crowd control has no place in Warframe. It's a viable choice for frames with lack of defenses. Yet Nova certainly doesn't fall into this category. Null Star enables her ultimate tankiness potential. With just 50% stat increase either to her strength or duration, Nova hits 90% damage reduction cap, and may keep it indefinitely simply by having a reduced range, since the Null Star particles will only fly off seeking nearby targets when enemies are in very close proximity to you. So normally you would evade utilizing the damage part of the Null Star, unless you lay your hands on the Neutron Star augment. The heat damage makes it very luring, and as it's a subsumable ability, it also opens up a contest with Thermal Thunder from Gauss. The Neutron Star build is super fun to play, and impact hits are so satisfying. However, after LOS check fix, I have to admit that Thermal Sunder is generally better, especially for leveling purposes.
Don't you know that the Null Star is one of those few abilities which is treated as a weapon damage? Do you have the slightest idea what vast possibilities it provides?
Actually, I won't even argue with this. That's a really very solid ground for theory crafting, but again, I'm all for practicality, and for nuking with Nova, there is her second ability. Antimatter Drop spawns an orb which can be charged with your weapon damage. Shotguns are recommended. And with a second tap, launch it to the reticle's direction for big damage. Simple as that. Even more explosions when paired with your ult. Before going to the final build, one word about teleporters. Nova's wormholes might be the best mobility tool in the game, but definitely hardest to master, so I choose to be happy. However, what is more important is that you can teleport drones in Cetus bounties. Regardless, it may seem a bit niche, this is what allows for truly next-level Aya grinds. I'll tell more about it in the upcoming vid on Platinum farm methods. Okay, this is the final build for daily use. Nova is in a very good spot for modding, because you can pretty much harmlessly ignore range stat and still get the most out of her main kit. For nuke shenanigans, adjust accordingly. As for Helminth picks, there is nothing like super mandatory. Here are some options to choose from. And shards, I would go for 2 crimsons for ability duration, as well as 3 ambers for cast speed.
And in case you're wondering where to get all those shards from, Elite Deep Archimedia will get you tons of them. Our next ranking, Dante, should carry you through it easily.
I hope you appreciated this genius transition. To be fair, I did not intend to lead with such an endgame content as a showcase for the frame, but my own criteria got me cornered. If simply being a generally good Warframe is not enough, how to weasel Dante into the top? This is why I found this loophole. And yes, I'm fully aware that for EDA there might be no best Warframe yet still. From my very subjective perspective, Dante is somewhat very close to it. Let me explain. Two major traits which make the frame suitable for this game mode are survivability and being able not to rely on your weapons. Dante aces both of them. Few cast rotations make you and your teammates nearly invincible. Ease of use is another key factor. You can get yourself gazillion overshields, the only question is what for. Realistically, you'll never need this much, while simple recast once in a while keeps you safe and sound just as good. So the ability which grants Overguard, the best defensive stat in the game, with several taps, could alone elevate Dante to the top league, but as if it was not enough. Dante, unlike most support-oriented Warframes, holds massive nuking potential, which is not limited to low-level missions. By the way, since we're at it, I'd like to introduce my innovative nuking strategy, SAM, or Spam Abilities Mindlessly. You might have guessed it's a quite energy-hungry tactic. Every possible energy regen source you can come up with, bring it to the build. To make things worse, this is probably the first and the last time on the channel when I genuinely recommend using Arcane Energize. Less time caring about your mana, more time having fun. Anyways, once you figure out how to handle your energy economy, you'll absolutely love playing Dante. Despite most footage being from EDA, all his aforementioned strengths and advantages apply perfectly to the rest of the star chart. He went through some ups and downs, and as of now, that's a very powerful frame who deserves fully to be in today's top. This is my build for general purposes. The first ability is Subsumed with Roar, tremendous buff to slash base Darkverse. Subsuming Overbook, because unfortunately as a utility tool it's a questionable one at the best, and in terms of damage it loses competition with Darkverse noticeably. As a final touch, consider dropping in red strength shards mixed with cast speed ones for maximum DPS and quality of life. Speaking of quality of life, Wisp is the one who hits the spot. The ever-popular Warframe waifu has become the default support for all more or less optimized team comps. Arbitrations, resource farms, Eidolon hunts, Plague Star event, and of course, defection. If you plant reservoirs smart enough along the evacuation's path, you could speedrun the mission, completing waves in around 2 minutes.
Let's go!
Joking. To be serious, with Wisp I don't have to cheat the criteria. The reality is that you're not obliged to pick any supports for your squad, but if you ever decide to do so, then Wisp, on average game scenario, is simply the best utility frame per slot. Extra survivability and mobility, smoother gun experience, all of it could never harm. The only thing, sometimes you don't want to place shock modes in defense and survival missions. Well, within the given assessment framework that should be plenty enough to put Wisp into the top, and it really is. However, despite for me it's the least rated feature, one wouldn't argue that Wisp is also an outstanding weapon platform. On top of obvious interactions like compensating slow fire rate for heavy hitting weapons, there is a melee plus Breach Surge combo. Breach Surge is a tricky ability, but the main part you should focus on is that it blinds enemies, and when they're blinded, they're susceptible to increased melee damage. After Exodia Contagion nerf, Glaive Prime makes the best use of it. And now the build for Wisp herself. You can see many strength conditional mods here. This is to boost your motes as much as possible, stack ones that last longer first, and don't spare red strength shards as well. Roar for Helminth ability. I've seen weirdos subsuming it over the second. Big mistake. Will-O-Wisp is your emergency button, basically a better version of Rolling Guard. On the other hand, there is Soulgate. Hella cool sun laser, yet doesn't do much even with heat priming. As a result, though reasoning behind the picks might have been controversial, we have a lineup of quite popular frames, and yeah, please do remember, similar to the first part of the top, there is no strict order for these rankings. In fact, they are interchangeable. With that amount of likes, I'll make the third and probably the last part of the series. Under the first vid, we had a very fruitful discussion which enriched my loadouts significantly. This time when I expanded my thesis, I'm really curious on what are your thoughts on it? What is it that makes a good Warframe for you? Or simply, who is your favorite? See you in the comments below. Finally, subscribe and check out other cool stuff. Till the next time.